Hi everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's day 7 in the 2022 Countdown to Christmas series, and today's going to be a quick and easy card. We're going to be doing some watercoloring and embossing, but honestly it took me about 15 minutes to put this card together. We're going to be using this stamp set from MFT, as well as scrap cardstock, pattern paper, and watercolor paper. So the card is going to measure 5 by 7, so that deer pattern paper also measures 5 by 7. I decided to make them cohesive, the two patterns that I was using. I was going to go around the edges of them with the Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide. It just kind of pulls it all together. It gives it a little bit of interest around the edges and kind of makes it all coordinate because they will both of the pattern papers will have that green around the edges. I wanted the traditional red and green, like that classic red and classic green colors. So these were two of the cardstocks or the pattern papers that I found in the stash that was just sitting next to my guillotine trimmer that I had used in other projects. So once I'm finished going around all of the edges with some Rustic Wilderness, we're going to be using my ATG to put tape on the back of the large pattern paper and glue that to the card front. And then we're also going to work on putting the piece of pattern paper, the long skinny one, on the red piece of cardstock. And the red piece of cardstock measures I believe it was 7 inches because it goes from the top to the bottom. I don't know how wide this scrap of paper is. It looks like it might be about 2.5 inches. And it just was, again, it was a scrap that was in the bin. I cut it down to make it even because I had used my scissors on it. So that was it. So I don't have the measurements and I apologize for that, but just cut it to whatever size that you need that'll fit your card. So this was also a scrap of watercolor cardstock and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do on it. And then I was like, oh, I like that messy, loose watercolor look behind a sentiment. So I knew I wanted to heat emboss it, and I have some stencils from MFT. But unfortunately, my scrap was a little bit too narrow for this. I have those ones that are the loose watercolor stencils that have the mask inside of it. And that was originally my plan for this. I was going to do something like that and just kind of do a regular Distress Oxide and not do kind of like a faux watercolor. And I might do that on another card. But like I said, this cardstock was just a little bit too narrow to do that. I went ahead and prepped the paper with that light kaolin powder, and then I used the Hero Arts embossing ink cube to ink up this stamped image, and we're going to be stamping that down onto the watercolor paper. I did it twice. Now I'm using some Stampendous embossing powder to cover the entire sentiment. Going to dump it off, and then we're going to heat emboss the image. When I heat emboss to try to minimize the warping, I tend to let my heat gun warm up and then I heat it from the back as well as from the front. I was getting a lot of warping from this. I don't know if I was holding the heat gun too close to it, but I do go back and heat emboss the back of it as well to try to flatten that out a little bit. So this, like I said, this card really took me no time at all to put together. So if you're looking for something that's easy to mass produce, this one definitely would be. Now that I've let the heat embossing cool off a little bit, I'm going to take the magnets, place them down onto the cardstock, and we are going to get ready to do the watercoloring technique. So I'm spraying a little bit of water down, adding it to my brush, and just adding some clean water to the background, just to wet the paper at first, just to get it started a little bit. Then I'm going to take that Rustic Wilderness and put it on my glass media mat and pick up that color. There's a little bit of moisture on the brush still, and I'm just going back and forth over the image to make it pop, but not doing like a complete rectangle or anything like that, just kind of making the brush go from left to right, right to left, and back and forth until I get an image or a shape that I'm happy with. So you'll see me go over it several times. The top is a lot darker than the bottom, just trying to smooth out some of the brush strokes and again, just get a shape that I am happy with. it did take me, this probably was the longest part of it, was trying to figure out if when I got to a point that I liked the shape, because I didn't want to do too much, but I also didn't want to do too little and just kind of make it look messy. So my brain was working a little bit overtime, and I think I have to kind of let that go and just let the ink go where it should, or the watercolor. In this case, we're using the ink as watercolor, so just kind of let it go where it should. And then I'm going to take a towel and just, it's actually a tissue, I think, and just wipe that ink off of the top of it, because that ink sits on top of that embossing powder. Since we didn't add too much water to it, it really is dry pretty much right away, so we can get ready to assemble the card. I am going to put the pieces together and just see where I like everything, and then I'm going to bring out my ATG again to attach the watercolor paper to that scrap of green cardstock that I had just lying around. So I actually was going to use a red behind the sentiment instead, but I already had the green out, and I kind of just wanted to get to the watercolor part of it and forgot that I had planned to do red. But I actually think it turned out better with the green on the green cardstock. Let me know what you think. Do you think I should have done the red, or should I have done the green? Once I finish adding the ATG to the back of this, the card will be fully assembled. So there it is, a very quick and easy card doing some heat embossing and faux watercoloring. Oh, I hope that you guys are enjoying this video. If you haven't checked out the intro video, make sure you check it out. If you have comments or questions, leave them below, and I'll see you again real soon for another video. Bye!